Hello, hello.
Hello, Marty.
Hey Marty, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Great,
Good,
great.
good.
How are you?
Good. I want to apologize for our last encounter.
No, it was
Oh,
very
please.
okay.
No, I was just pulled in so many different directions and all that, and just so stressed. So I appreciate you guys doing this again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really funny. I don't know if you remember, but my car broke down on the way to this interview. There were just so many things that weren't working out to have this interview.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad we're doing it again, though. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we just know that you are very busy now and you had awesome month, previous month. So maybe you just can share what have you done, what have you accomplished, and we know that you were with Modern Knowledge Tour, and maybe you can share some impressions and presentations you did from there with us.
yeah, the Modern Knowledge Tour. Yeah, we did. We started in Montreal, and then David Whitehead and I, who was one of the organizers, we drove the whole way. So we went from Montreal all the way to Victoria, and did like five stops there, and then five stops along the way, and then yeah, we went hiking and got to see the city, and it was a great time. A lot of, all the people in the audience were just fantastic. I was really surprised. A lot of really great questions, and people were really like, inquisitive and curious, and really just kind of heart centered. And it was a fantastic time. So very like humbling and very inspiring because you're just around so many people that were just so uplifting in their
Hmm.
spirit and stuff. So yeah, it was great. It ended up being a really great tour. So.
Awesome. Can't wait to see
Yeah.
presentations.
Yeah, I believe that they're putting them up on modernknowledge.ca. Those guys just got back from the tour, so I think they're trying to get a breather in. And then I think they're going to go up on the Modern Knowledge. And I think I'm not sure how much it is, but I think you can pay like $5 or $20 or something like that, and then see all the speeches from at least Toronto anyway. So
Hmm.
Great.
That's great to
Unbelievable.
hear that there was awesome feedback. Did you like meet your numbers? Was it like sold out? Was a lot of people taking advantage of that?
Um, no, unfortunately, some of the numbers were actually low, to be honest. But I think that at least in the start of the tour, but towards the end of the tour, I think people got word of it, and then they started, coming more. So I didn't have the most amount of people because I was like kind of the opening act, if you will. So I was the first person to go on. So I didn't have that many people in the audience to start, but it's still good, whether that's I'm a musician, so I've played bars before where there was like no one there. So to have anyone in the seats is like,
Mm.
that's winning there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
think it
that was
was
great.
it was kind of like right in the holiday season too. I myself was overseas and kind of bit myself in the hand not being able to attend, but had to go. So maybe a lot of people just were kind of, gone, couldn't take advantage of it, and even more, we look forward to seeing those videos.
Yeah, you never really know what people's schedules are and stuff like that. So for those guys, it was it's a pretty big gamble, like doing this whole tour and stuff like that,
Right.
and just hoping people show up. So, but the people that were there loved it. I mean, I think we got standing ovations across Canada. So people loved the presentations, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, great. Great. So maybe for the beginning, we would love to make some introduction to Marty for our listeners who are not maybe familiar with his work. So, Marty, you are the amazing teacher, true explorer of sacred geometry, real master of English gematria, real numerology, etymology, theology, and many, many more subjects related. And that's very beautiful how you show people how we can look at math from different perspective and how we can unite that with art and how that art is not, is a part of the math. So thank you for doing that. That's very amazing. And for all the listeners, just please, I'm just encouraging for go and check his work at martyleeds33.com and also at his YouTube channel, which is Marty Leeds 33. And also, Marty, maybe you can share some links where people can get your books and to just read them and to deepen into the knowledge you are sharing.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, like you said, MartyLeads33.com is like my main site, and then pretty active YouTube channel. And just look up Marty Leeds 33, and that will come up. And then so yeah, I've got three books and some like DVDs and a bunch of stuff that you can actually view for absolutely free. One of the things I like to say is that I like to provide as much information for absolutely free, so that people that are interested in this, that don't have money or whatever, that they can go and check all this stuff out and learn the cipher and learn the symbolism symbolism and stuff like that, for absolutely free. Like, you don't, I mean, one of the things I like to repeat is that you can learn all this and you don't have to give me a cent of your money. So I do appreciate when people, support the work, but at the end of the day, that's not really what this is about. So, Marty Leeds 33. I'm also a musician. I released a record in 2013, and then I'm releasing another EP this year, just something that I recorded at home. And then I've got another record in the works. And then, so I have 3 books: Pie in the English Alphabet, Volume 1, Volume 2, and then a book called The Peacock's Tales. And then I'm working on the 3rd volume right now, and I'm probably 3/4 of the way done with it, or something like that. And it's just covering, a bevy of different subjects and phenomenon and concepts and things like that. So some of the ones I'm covering in this next book are, what am I covering? The Hebrew alphabet. I'm going to cover Om Mani Padme Hum, that idea.
Mm.
The Trinitarian formula. There's just a bunch of different stuff I'm covering. So, and I'm really excited for this next book because, I mean, I know it's kind of cliche to say this, but I think it's the best thing I've ever done. So,
Wow.
that,
And just to underline how humble this guy is today, we had a little post on Facebook, and Christina posted something that was related to Marty's work, and she quoted him and tagged him, and then he said, this is all our knowledge as we're learning this together, and this is so important, I think, in this movement, to share the knowledge. We all are here to remember together and put it together.
Yeah,
Together.
being mirrors to each other.
Yeah.
well, that's very important to me because, number one, that's just the truth. I mean, I've made a lot of personal discoveries and things like that, but none of them I wouldn't have, you know, I wouldn't have uncovered these things without the help of so many other people. And that's just the cold hard reality of it. So I've learned from so many people, whether that's modern day researchers or people of the past. And so what I'm trying to do is just really, kind of consolidate this stuff and make it digestible. And so, people, I always shy away from my work because, number one, I think, the devil loves the materialist because possession comes from possessions. We don't own any of this stuff. And so really the idea is, learn from everybody. I learn from you, you learn from me, and we try to share it. And I think that's one of the things that that our time is all about. Speaking of modern knowledge, David Whitehead actually said something really profound and really important. And he said that humility is the long lost virtue. And I
Hmm.
really couldn't agree with that more because I think the more humble we are, the more our hearts are
Yeah.
going to shine, if you will.
Yeah, the more we see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for doing, all the beautiful works you do. That's really magnificent.
Thank
Oh,
you. I mean, I just enjoy it. I mean, it's helped me. And so I knew that, and teaching it really kind of, it's like you get to learn it all over again. You know what I mean? It really
mhm.
sort of like crystallizes in yourself. So when I like make a video or do podcasts or stuff like this and go over this material, it helps me as much as it might help anybody else. So
Yeah.
and I think that's important. And I think that's really what teaching is all about.
Yeah, just like locking within, we know information, but after just are talking to others, we are sharing, only then we can lock that knowledge inside for experience. That's very important to share.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's the goal of humanity right now is to, I think Vinnie Eastwood kind of said it best when he talked about the de-occultists. About right now, the movement that we need right now is a de-occulting movement. Is to really take this hidden information and shine a light on it and show it to everybody, so we can all get some clarity with this stuff. That's what I've gotten from it, and it's helped me, really, kind of like solidify the idea of a great creative, being or an intelligent designer thing, and that's been one of the most uplifting things in my life, and it's kept me inspired and it's kept me working, and I mean, I just enjoy the hell out of it. So
Yeah, beautiful.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay, so maybe we just can talk about the word math, and how that word, for example, correlates to the Egyptian concept of truth, balance, order, law, morality, and justice, because we know that they had the Maat, the goddess, regulating the stars, seasons, actions of both mortals and deities, and all chaos and moments of creations, and they called that deity Maat. And from there, maybe there is some correlation with the word math we have, so maybe you can share some etymology and numerology of the word math itself here.
Yeah, sure. There, the a direct like etymological link or whatever to math and mat. I don't know if that exists, but when we look at just the spelling and the phonetics and things like that, to me there is a direct correlation. Um, I mean, one of the things that brought me to that idea, a few things. Number one was, well, there are 42 principles of the Egyptian Maat, and that's pretty much well known by a lot of people. And so to me, immediately it was like, okay, Maat, and you're dealing with numbers. Well, obviously there's some connection there to math, and so it just made sense to me that, however, our modern English word math or mathematics, which has mat twice in it, by the way, um, however this came to pass, it was obviously a link to this, and so that's kind of where I started. And then when you look at, well, there's the feather of Maat, and this comes from this well, I mean, the feather of Maat, the 42 principles of Maat. This Maat comes also is a reference to mater, which is mother. That's the Latin word for mother, and this is mater is actually where we get the material world. And so, from my own studies and things like that, how I've come to understand it is that this whole creation is actually created mathematically or geometrically or through numbers, through these sort of cosmological principles that can be found within numbers. And that numbers themselves literally are the essences of this creator force. This is the principles which govern the world and manifest the world. And so when we look at, this Maat, the fact that there were these 42 principles in which the Egyptians abided by, and it was these sort of laws that they had to live by, well, they weren't kidding. They weren't just kind of drumming this up through their own imagination. What they were doing is actually looking at nature, looking at the math itself, and saying, yes, there are these principles that exist there. And so that's kind of where the correlation came from, the idea of math and Maat. So,
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing about Maat as well is that there are 42 principles of Maat. Well, when you just walk up your number line to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, the next three numbers are 13, 14, and 15. And you can actually create pi with those numbers. So all you have to do is put a decimal, drop the 1 in 13 and put a decimal place, after the 3. And 13, 14, 15 will give you 3.1415. And so, and if you add those up, 13 plus 14 plus 15 equals 42. So, doing this sort of investigation and making all those connections, it just made a lot of sense, and it was mathematically verifiable. So that's kind of where I went with it. And yeah, I don't know if there's any like direct source of where this stuff comes from, but to me, there is a direct source in one way, because it's the source of nature, it's the source of the outflowing expressions of God, which is understood, at least
Mm-hmm.
as far as I'm concerned, with number.
Yeah, yeah.
Another word that hints us a little bit to the value of the mathematics and the balance value that is talked about is the word integrity. Um, and interestingly enough, we do not have an adjective in English for integrity. We would want to jump to integer if you want. In German that works, but in English it's not there. But integer, interestingly, is a whole number. So, there is the number and the balance connected to the word integrity, which is wholeness, perfect condition, innocence in a way. And again, it's so closely connected to the balance and the math.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, to me, integrity comes from understanding nature and living in accordance with it. Living in concert with it.
Hmm.
I think that's the ultimate integrity, and I think a lot of Native tribes, especially like Native American tribes, from the studies I've done, would probably say the same thing. This actually makes me think of something I was just thinking about today. The word in when we talk about intelligence, right? If are you an intelligent person? Well, intel is information,
Mm.
right? So it's information, it's wisdom that you get. We could say gnostically, or from creation itself. So that's the intel. You're bringing in all the information or the intel, and then you have the word gent in there. And of course, in between intel and in gent is I. So therefore, you have the singular person or whatever. And gent is the prefix of gentle. So an intelligent person is really somebody that is bringing in information and being gentle with it. using their heart with it. And I
Mm,
think so much of this integrity, people talk all the time about being, oh, I'm smart, or this guy's a fucking dumbass and stuff like that. At the end of the day, I don't think intelligence really comes necessarily from your brain. I think it's more holistic. I think intelligence comes as much from your heart as it does your brain. I mean, I like to say, if you don't, if you're not using your heart when you're thinking, then you're not thinking at all.
mm.
I mean, to me, God is a science of the heart. So, and I think that's where true, integrity comes from.
Yeah, yeah, that's very beautiful, and that also correlates with the presentation you did about the Christmas and Christ and Mass, and how we have to Mass and wait that chrism we have on the December 25th, to live that again to the heart, to the balance of that pump of the heart. So maybe you can just share something more about that, because it also correlates to me about the lifting not only the heart but also the weight of yourself, like in Egyptian myths they did with weighting your heart with the feather, which is heavier. So what can you share maybe here?
Yeah, the idea of heaven. We always have this concept. I mean, even I think the Egyptians talked about, that heaven exists within, and whosoever find it shall, that sort of idea, or the kingdom of God resides in you, the kingdom of heaven resides in you. Heaven has the word heave in it, and it's the idea of heaving up. And so when we take, we harness that energy or that spirit within us, and we're trying to heave it up. Well, a lot of people would think that that that's done through study, that's done through using your brain and stuff like that. Because eventually, what do you got to do? You got to get to the pineal gland. That's the whole goal, right? Well, when you look at the human body, the heart is in the center, right? And it's the center chakra. So you have three below and three above, and the center one is the heart. So in order to get that sort of like kundalini energy, or whatever you want to say, moving up your spine and into your pineal gland, the first thing you have to do is cross the lion's gate, if you will, the heart. And so when you look at nature, right, we're on earth. And so we look up and there's heaven above. So we're on earth and we're looking up and there's heaven. Well, earth is an anagram for heart. So we look at our human body, we make a correlation, we say, okay, what's our heart? Well, it's an anagram for earth. So where's heaven? Well, it's in our head, right? Because what's higher than the heart? It's yeah, in the human body, of course, it's your pineal gland, it's your head. So, but in order to get to heaven, you first have to go through earth, and that's why we're here. Is the idea to recognize the God that dwells within, or whatever, and make that journey home, if you will. So when we look at and raising the mass, if you will, if you talked about raising
Mm,
or letting go of the mass and
yeah.
raising the self up, it's the same idea. When we look at our heart or our earth and we want to raise it to heaven and we want to heave that up, I think that general spiritual lesson and journey and story is absolutely encoded within the story of Christ. I think without question, and that's one of the things that that video is kind of addressing, is that there's a really deep spiritual message behind Christ, and I think it's, for the most part, it's been lost for many years, but we're kind of coming back into the fold of re-understanding the deep symbolic nature of these stories.
Yeah, beautiful. And also, I just did some investigation. The word heaven, as we talked about heaven and earth, and heaven is like H and even, like even number. So we have H and even being like two of something. And also, that two correlates again, like H is like two T's in one. So two T's like two crosses of matter in one. So that's just showing that we have H and two crosses in that H. It shows like heaven is combined from the earth. So we have earth being the heaven and heaven being the earth. If they are undividable. So it's just like a paradox here. So what can maybe you share here?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that so I mean, we've been taught that heaven is in the afterlife or whatever, and it
Mm-hmm.
probably is too, but it's also here as well, and that's just a fact because we can look up and see it, just like we can look into ourselves and contemplate and think and philosophize and understand that there is this sort of force within us. The H in heaven is, like you were saying, I think is really important, because you basically have those two lines and they're connected by that
Mm-hmm.
center bar, you know. And there's this great a good friend of mine, Richard Casaro. and he actually has talked about this idea of you see this icon of the God self, I think is what he calls it, and it's all around the world, and it's what it is a human being, and it's holding two poles. There's one on the left and one on the right, and it's bringing together those poles. Well, that those poles are, of course, the polarity within you. It's the male and female. It's the positive and negative. It's the Shiva and the Shakti. It's your electromagnetic force that exists within you, and that constructs the human being. And so that icon to me is showing that that person is unifying those forces and making them one. And of course, there's one on the left and one on the right, and then the human being in the center, which makes the almighty three, of course. And the letter H, is showing that perfectly symbolically. I see it, you know. And so the fact that you have that in the beginning of heaven and at the end of earth, I think speaks a lot. And I think that part of one of the most important things about all of this investigation into the spirituality and stuff like that. I mean, I talk numbers and lot and geometry and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, my favorite thing to investigate is symbolism. And when you look at the letters of our alphabet, they're symbols, and therefore, I mean, that just by very definition, so therefore they are symbolic of something. So I think that we can really start to get understand the spiritual aspects of our language by looking at all these things symbolically. And the H is it's just a perfect example of that. One other thing about the H in English gematria, it's 6. So, when H is 6, and et cetera, et cetera. We can go over the cipher, but not going to do that here. But when you actually look at the points on the H, there's 6 points. So it would be, on each pole, there's one on the top, one on the bottom, and then there's the one in the center that connects it. So that's 6 points. And then you have the 3 lines connecting those. So that gives you the numbers 3 and 6. And we could talk about 3, 6, and 9. We could talk about 36. We could talk about, et cetera, et cetera. But all of that is derived from literally 3 lines pulled together. You just have to understand the symbolism behind it.
Yeah.
And H also interesting, as Christina said, the double T that comes together like that. Also, it's the 8th letter in our alphabet. And okay, we know that 8, if you lay it flat, it's the infinity sign. As for symbolism, and I also today just stumbled upon that there's also pi in H, because when you imagine the zodiac wheel, right, and it's the 4 quadrants, and each is divided into 3, then on top there we have the G, and in the fourth of the second, in the first of the second quadrant, you have the H there situated, which is the first after the 3, being the fourth, which that's also 3.14, if you will.
Interesting. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have to
just
look at that.
stumbled upon that today, because of your presentation that Christina mentioned about the Christmas and whatnot, and you were also talking about the word God there and whatnot, and if we take the letters A and L, the God entity, or if you will, I also saw that is from Aries to Libra, A and L, which is the upper half of the zodiac wheel, which is
Oh,
pretty much
interesting.
the light side, the sun side. So here you have the godly, golden dawn time, if you will, and that's from A to L. And yeah, of course, after that it's darkness. There's still light, but it's below the ecliptic, the sun. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd never thought about that. That's cool. So,
Yeah, and then also what dawned on me when I saw your presentation, the circle and the cross is 3 lines. So the cross makes 2 lines, and one is a circle, not a straight line, of course. So that is 3 things that makes one whole, and that is divided into 4 quadrants. There's the pi also.
yes. Oh man, there's so many things we could talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
here.
symbolism, exactly.
I need a whiteboard. um, yeah. Maybe we could talk about 3 and 4 a little bit, because I
Hmm.
think that those are pretty important numbers. First off, 3 and 4. once again, as I've come to understand it, represents heaven and earth. So the circle in sacred geometry, the circle is known as heaven, and then the square is known as earth. And so these are designated with the numbers 3 and 4. So, well, first off, just look at your fingers. If you look at your fingers, you have 4 fingers, and then you have 3 sections on each of one of those fingers. So we could talk about how that's a representation of the 12 ages of the zodiac with the four, the quadrants, and then 3 houses within each quadrant, that sort of thing. But 3 and 4 is pretty interesting because, well, I mean, number one, it adds up to 7. We could talk about that forever. But one thing people kind of ask me is like, well, why 3 and 4? Why is heaven known as a 3 and earth is a 4? Well, we could easily scratch off 4, making sense as earth, because why? Well, why there's 4 corners to earth, if you will. It's northeast, west, and south. It's the spring, summer, winter, fall, or yeah, spring, summer, winter, fall, and so you have the 4 seasons, that sort of thing. So that makes sense. But people ask, okay, well, why is heaven a 3 and a circle? And really, there's numerous ways, reasons why symbolically the circle points to the number 3. First and foremost, all you have to do is draw a line through that circle and make that line 1, and your circumference is going to be 3.14159, etc. So just rounding down using pi, you're going to end up with the number 3. Some people have asked, well, why isn't 3 representative of a triangle? Well, it is, of course, because you have 3 points to that triangle. But a triangle in two dimensions, when you bring that triangle into 3 dimensions, what you actually have is a cone. You can actually create a cone with that. So, and a cone, if you just look at the bottom half of it, is a circle. So when we look at something in 2 dimensions as a triangle and then bring it into 3, we still have that circle being 3. Another interesting thing about the circle is that it represents, it's really the alpha and the omega, because it's the beginning and the end. The circle has no beginning and has no end. It's just one thing, right? The circle will geometrically encapsulates the most amount of space. So really what the circle represents is the all. It's the entirety of it. It's the totality. If we're going to imagine infinity, everything that we can possibly conceive of, the geometric form that we would have to use is a circle. Well, when we think about everything that we can possibly think of, what we're doing is thinking of time, really. Now, what is time? Time is past, present, and future. 3 things. But those 3 things are becoming what? 1. Because, is it the present now? Oh, no. That present just became the past. Is it the future? No, the future's here. Now it's the present. The present became the past. You get what I'm saying? Those 3 things, past, present, and future, become one fluid movement. So that oneness is representative of the circle, because the circle is, once again, it's just one line that has no beginning and no end. So when you and you don't even have to scour the books in the library or go looking through the internet. All you have to do is really sort of like philosophize and contemplate on the symbolism of a circle itself. And I think that these things are naturally going to come out. And I think that they're very reasonable and rational too. So this idea of heaven and earth merging, the circle and the square, everything that's above and everything that's below is something that's shared across the world. And the fact that it is shared across the world shows that there's got to be something concrete where these ideas and concepts and philosophies came from. And what's more concrete than, of course, math? So.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, we just also have one thing we wanted to share with you. I just maybe send you a picture. Just a second.
Oh, it won't open for some reason. Hold on.
Well, pretty much it's a picture of a pill.
Oh, okay. There we go. I see.
Where you have, if you take that word apart, you have pi L again.
Sure.
And
Okay, yeah.
the diameter where you can
Yeah.
break it in 2 halves, kind of like the blue pill or the red pill, summer or winter,
Yeah.
night or day, make your decision.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't see it as a whole.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, when you go and get like in Catholicism, when you go and eat the what is it called, the body and blood of Christ or whatever, when you go to get that wafer, traditionally, whatever, the wafer in and of itself is a circle and there's a line through it.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So I always found that
Yeah.
really interesting because one of the things you're getting the body and blood of Christ in one way is represented, of course, by pi. Now, is it pi in and of itself? No, pi is just a representation, a geometric representation of something much more grand, of course. A lot of people, one thing that, once again, I mean, I've talked about this, I just talked about this with the idea is like we can get caught up in the numbers and things like that, and they're very important. But at the end of the day, it's really what the numbers mean. It's really what the meaning and the symbolism behind all these things are. One
Yeah.
thing I was talking to, who was I talking to? Oh, David Whitehead, actually, once again. We were talking about numbers. Well, the word numbers has num in it. So, if I'm going to sit here on this show and talk about how numbers are cosmological principles by God and stuff like that, and they have characteristics and principles and attributes and things like that, and I say all that, and then you look at the word numbers and say it's num, well, what you have to understand is that those numbers are num. There's really nothing to them. It's only when you bring your own spirit and own investigation into
Mm-hmm.
them that they really come alive. You know what I'm saying? So pi is just a circle and a line. Who gives a shit, right? But when you actually look at things that you're showing, we talk about getting the wafer in Catholicism, all of that stuff. Really, all of this stuff starts bounding out, and it's to me it's very beautiful. There's nothing numb about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's when you have only a piece of the pie that you get an idea of the whole, but you still divide it, and so are our sciences and ideas divided into two or multiple even, and just to see the whole uh, pill, the whole round, the whole piece of all the pieces of the pie, that is really the key. And we have it in the word pupil as well, which is in your eye, which is round, and there's the pill
Hmm.
again. So it's really the sound, the numbers, the letters, the symbols, the astrological signs all together that we have to digest, and then yeah, we spit out our own creative pills.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one thing that I think a lot of people end up doing within like the alternative research community is tend to look at all of this information because it's wrapped up in our language and it seems to point to a lot of the elites and Freemasonry and yada yada yada, all of that stuff is they tend to see the dark side of everything. And it's really important that there's that information or knowledge, right? Knowledge in and of itself has both sides, just like pi is showing. There's a dark side and the light side, and to me to just focus on the darkness, I think is actually doing an injustice to the information in and of itself. I think that in order to see the purest of lights, you have to see the darkest of darks. The problem is that people will go and they'll go down that rabbit hole of seeing the negativity and the malevolence and all of that stuff in our world, and they can't get out of it. And in one respect, you have to go to the darkest of darks to see the lightest of lights. And so it's really important to understand that all of this stuff that we discuss, the language, the symbolism, the numbers, it's just a body of information. It's just a body of knowledge. And that knowledge can be used for good or evil. And this is this whole idea of de-occulting this stuff, because right now it's hidden from most people. And it's being used in
All right, and we're back. We just crashed. Yeah, I guess what we were
apparently
saying
the
is
apparently
don't
the NSA or something doesn't like me talking about the light. I don't
the line, yeah. Don't just taste the icing of the cake. There's a whole bottom you have to eat through. That was the
exactly.
message. Or the
Yeah,
icing of
exactly.
the pie.
Hey, I enjoy cake too. Don't get me wrong. So you were talking about pill and how there's pie in there, and we could talk about a bunch of different words like, being pious or being, a pioneer, those who are near the pie, that sort of idea. One of the ones I really like is peace,
Mm-hmm.
because peace, like a piece of the pie, number one, but then of course you have peace, as in harmony, as in that sort of thing. Peace. Well, pe is the Hebrew equivalent of pi. It's pay. And so in the word peace, you have pay, which is pi, and then you have the word ace. And ace means one. And so you have this idea that somehow peace comes from oneness and understanding the duality of that oneness, meaning the spirit and the matter, the dark and the light, the positive and negative, because that's really what the symbolism of pi is showing you by that circle and cutting that line, the line through it. So I think it's once again, when we were talking about H bringing those dualities together, the left and the right, merging them in the center. You have that same idea with the word peace, because peace is saying pay or pi, two halves, and then what are you going to do with it? You're going to make an ace out of it. You're going to make oneness out of it. So I think the word peace, when you break it down, when we look at the the phonetics and et cetera, when we look at the math to it, it's that's not just an arbitrary word. It's actually saying something very profound and very true, in my opinion. And an opinion without pi is just an onion.
Yeah, sure. We just did one slide on the piece, sign, so we just can throw the link here. We just placed, the peace symbol on the zodiacal wheel, and we just saw that, that lower case of the pi symbol contains, water, fire, earth, and air, in one. So just like those four sciences in that one. So it's up to us how we will, turn that wheel after all. That was really
Oh,
interesting.
yeah, it's. I think it was Joe Dubs. I want to say he runs Cosmic Creations and JoeDubs.com. He's just a friend on Facebook, and he actually showed that the just taking the traditional peace symbol, I believe encodes phi, which is like 1.618. And I got to review that information again, but go check that out. Yeah, just go check out Joe Dubs, Cosmic Creations. He shares a lot of this information, and he's got a great page, and he's always posting really interesting stuff. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, that's really interesting what you're showing there. That's awesome.
Yeah, great. So maybe just we can now trace the meanings of the Holy Trinity and energy pyramids, triangles, and 369 meanings. How we have to reach that balance in that triangle to have that harmony and meet the portals and everything. So what can you share here? It's a huge topic.
It is a huge topic. It kind of depends where you want to go with it. We can go back to this. This is something that I covered in the speech, and I actually talk about this a lot. This idea of the Holy Trinity, like where does this idea come from? Three becoming one, and we have this, as I was saying, in time, past, present, and future becoming one fluid movement. And then you have this found in all these other religions, Egyptian or mythologies and that sort of stuff. In Egyptian, it's Isis, Osiris, Horus, of course. In Christian, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, that sort of thing. In what is it, Odin, Freya, and Thor, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's like all of these manifestations of this idea of three becoming one, and really what that is telling you, at the core philosophy, at least as far as I see it, is telling you about your place in time, is that you were extracted from this timeless place, this all unifying, undifferentiated light, and you are sort of brought down into a lower dimension. And obviously, if there is an intelligent force, as I've come to know it, there must be a reason for this existence, and so there must be a reason or a purpose for you being, us falling from this great creative force. Well, I think one of the things that three becoming one is telling you about is you navigating through time and understanding where you are. I actually had this conversation with Laird Scranton. He's written a bunch of really great books, Science of the Dogon and Cosmological Origin of Myth and Symbol and stuff like that. A bunch of great books. But one of the things he talks about is that he finds throughout a lot of the different religions that he studied, whether it's Chinese, Dogon, Buddhism, that a lot of times you'll have this underlying theme of that there's essentially a below and above, as we all know, and that above is it's all-knowing, but it can't act at all. And below, and that's would be the heaven, if you will, the God force or whatever. And below you have us, who can act completely but don't know shit. You know what I mean? And so really what we have is this understanding of when we look at this three becoming one, and recognizing that you're moving through time, understanding that that's where you are, that you have this ability to act, and that you really don't know anything. And so one of the things that time is allowing you to do is learn, is to go through the process of learning, to go figure out who you are, why you're here, what's the purpose of life, where'd you come from, where you're going. To me, that's one of the core things about being a human being. As Joni Mitchell says, life is for learning. So one of the things that I think that we're here to do, and what this three becoming one tells you about with time, is to learn. What is time for? What is time for? You figure out what time is for, I think you're going to figure out what you are for.
Yeah, interesting thing, we have the pyramid in Giza and we don't have that capstone. So instead of having that triangle with three angles, we now have like, you know, 4 angles without that capstone. So if we will add that capstone with 3 angles, we will have, again, you know, those 3 angles. So we have 3 and 4 again here, instead of being that whole 3. So
You know what I was saying about figure out what time is for, you know,
mhm,
to go off what you were saying too, what time is for and what you're for. You know, when you look at a metaphor, well, phonetically, phor is four, the number
yeah,
four. Meta means beyond or before. So what's beyond or before four? Well, it's three.
hmm,
So you have three and four right there. Interesting thing about this three and four is that, well, the difference between three and four is one. So really, this idea of heaven being a three and earth being a four, and there's one in the middle of those, is talking about, once again, you. It's talking about this idea that you have to include yourself within the math. You have to include
yeah,
yourself, the person that's doing the math. That's, I think, one of the things that the reasons why I absolutely feel like it, you know, the capstone of the Great Pyramid of Giza, Pyramid of Khufu, wasn't stolen, or they didn't, you know, they forgot to finish it or something like that, and that it was purposely left off. And the whole idea, the whole concept is you have to include yourself within creation, and you have to finish that pyramid. But the capstone on the top of the pyramid is representing you, you know. And we actually see this in a bunch of different places, where the idea that you have to include yourself within the creation, you have to include yourself within the math to make sense of it. So this three and four is one place. Another interesting place in English gematria, heaven equals 23 and earth equals 24. Well, what's the difference between 23 and 24? It's one. So once
hmm,
again, that one represents you. What else do we see? This? Oh, the Eye of Horus myth, right? You have the idea that Horus was cut up in 64 pieces, and I think Isis went to retrieve the pieces and only found 63 of them. Well, I mean, there's numerous things we could talk about with this myth, but one of the things is this difference between 63 and 64. Well, what's the difference between those? That's one. That one represents you doing the math.
yeah,
The monad in Greek isosophy, I always say that incorrectly, so I apologize. But the monad, which is a symbol of wholeness, I'm sure you guys know it. I'm sure a lot of your listeners know it as well. This is a symbol of wholeness. It's a symbol of divinity, and it's used across the damned world. The Dogon use it, the Greeks use it, the Egyptians use it, et cetera, et cetera. This in Greek isosophy, it added up to 361. Well, why not 360 degrees of a circle? Why isn't wholeness 360 degrees of a circle? Well, it's because you have to include yourself doing the math, and then you're going to find wholeness. And that's why it's 361. You know, so all of these myths, all of these things are actually pointing, once again, basically to just, you know, what are you here for? And that's to discover the sacredness and divinity of yourself, in my opinion.
yeah. Just relating to the things you do about, you know, hands, and, you know, you talked about 10 fingers of your hand. And like, you know, in the Bible, there was a sentence at the beginning, you know, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, that there were 10 words here mentioned. And also 10 is like 1 and 0 is like nothing or none. So we again here have only one. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I really like about the Genesis 1:1, yeah, as you were saying, it's 10 words.
Yeah.
So you can, you know, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and that's 10 words, and you can put those right on your hands.
Yeah.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Well, that is telling you also about heaven being a circle, earth being a square. So then we're bringing geometry into it. You know, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Well, what's heaven? It's as above. What's earth? It's so below. So when we look at the, you know, the deep philosophy behind this, we can go into Hermeticism, we can go into, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, the opening line of Genesis is saying, in the beginning, God created everything above and everything below. And the fact that there's 10 words is saying that it stuck you right in the damned middle of it. You know, in the beginning,
Mhm.
God created heaven and the earth and put you right in the middle of it. And there's that three and four. There's that squaring the circle. There's that 10 words to talk about your 10 digits, your 10 fingers.
Yeah. And also that 0, you know, is like a sphere, is like a circle, and also with that 1 in the number of 10 is like shaped and you know, has some angles. So again, we have heaven and the earth in our own hands, in our own body. So just showing just so prominently here.
Yeah, I mean the merging of the man and the woman. I
Yeah.
think there's been numerous people that have talked about that. Ari Schwolter de Lubitsch, I know, has talked about that. I'm sure. I think Manly P. Hall has talked about that as well. But the idea of the, you know, what is this? What is the line? Well, that's a penis. What's the circle? That's a vagina. That's the cosmic union, the mother and father coming together, merging into one. And once again, that talks about the electromagnetism of you, talks about your 10 fingers, it talks about the decimal system, which is the system that you can use to create any other number in creation. And so once again, all of this stuff is just stuck in the symbolism of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never going to go anywhere. It's always going to be here. It's as long as human beings are on this plane of existence, which
Hmm.
I mean, it's always going to be here, So if we ever lose it, the thing I always like to say is, well, don't worry, just look down at your hands and you'll find it.
Yeah, yeah. And also the communication, the word internet here again, we can in netter or in netter internet, and again we have that then at the ending of the word internet. Again, communication, male, female, and so on so. And because of that internet, we can achieve something, we can share information and just change some situations to the better side.
Yeah, internet. As far as I understand, netter is where we get the word nature.
Mm-hmm.
I think Crichton E. Miller talked about that. There's a few other sources of that as well. And so you have the word, as you're saying, inter-10 or internet. So we're in the 10, if you will, which is once again the decimal system, if you will. And then you have in the nature, if you will, the internet. Interesting thing in English gematria. Well, the internet is created, as you were saying, it's a binary system, so it's 0 and 1, and that's that male and female. It's on and off. It's positive and negative, that sort of thing. In English gematria, on is on, and this is 2 1. It equals 3, and then off is 266, and this equals 14. And this is exactly what the internet does. It says, let something in, don't let something in. On, off, on, off. It's a gazillion iterations of on and off, and that's how this entire internet works. Well, when you have on equaling 3 in English gematria and off equaling 14, you have literally 314. And then you have to understand as well that what's the difference between something being on and off? Well, it's a point. And so the internet in and of itself, with its on and off, is telling you about pi. So not only do we have 10 giving you the symbolism of a 0 and a 1, or putting that together being the diameter and the circumference, then et cetera, et cetera. This stuff is all over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. And also the number 7 is also very important. Like, for example, if we will look at our hand and our fist, when we are making fist with our palm, we see the shape, which is familiar to the letter G. And, we have 5 fingers, so we have the strength of the 5, and due to that 5 fingers, the strength of the 5 fingers, we are embedding that energy of that 7G. So what can you maybe share here?
Yes. First thing before we go into 7 and G a second, I want to say something about 5.
Okay.
In English gematria, 5 is FIVE, and it's 6555. So this equals 21. So you have five fingers, or 4 appendages and 1 thumb, 5 in your left hand, 5 in your right, and doing the mathematics of the word 5, it gives you 21. So therefore, when you put your 2 hands together, linguistically, it equals 42. And that's the 42 principles of the Egyptian Maat. Interesting there. So the G, the G that you our opposable thumbs are the things that allow us to grip and grasp the world. It allows us to manipulate the material world and create the internet for create and do all the things that we love to do. Cook food, make love, communicate with one another, embrace one another, that sort of thing. And so the fact that we have that G right on our hands says a lot. Interesting. So G is the 7th letter of the English alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, if you add 1 through 7, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7, stopping on that G, it equals 28. Well, if you look down at your hands, you have 28 phalanges, or these little bones, sections or segments on your fingers, and that equals 28. So adding 1, so your hands symbolically create a G to grip and grasp the world, creates a G. G is the 7th letter of the English alphabet. Then you add 1 through 7, and it tells you about your hands again. So that's and the fact that, as far as I see, that the English alphabet was created using these things shows how, just how brilliant and how deeply connected and gnostically connected the people that whatever, created or dreamed up or gnostically received the English alphabet. So we basically, what we have here is universal principles within our alphabet that are found on our hands.
Right. And just shows how powerful that is, to use our hands with the right intent, with the right numerology in our mind. Even if you sit in front of the TV and you put your finger on the round button, which is the power button of the TV, that alone is, the I to the O, and then the power button itself, the power symbol, is the I inserted to the O, and that's when things light up. So it's literally everywhere, and it's really up to us to see and kind of understand the power of that symbolism around us and what it's used for.
Yeah, yeah, the power symbol is so interesting because that's literally once again, a penis entering a vagina, a cosmic union.
Hmm.
Father sky, mother earth, merging together one, as above, so below, merging together into one, and that's found in a symbol. So when you hit that power, that's the power of the universe in one way. Unfortunately, we use it to watch terrible shows like CSI Miami and shit, but but we can turn that around, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that is the power of the internet, because with one click of the button, you're now connected to everybody, and we're pouring, Facebook, we're pouring our thoughts out, we're pouring out what we love, and we're pouring out what we're mad about, and that really is the merging, uh, out in the open of our innerst, thoughts and feelings, which before the internet was kind of, in the closest circles, maybe in a secret society where these things were exchanged. But now our dreams are out in the open, and with the help of the symbolism, we can put it together again to make it a whole, and that's just beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, people. One of the things I've talked about before is that the internet wasn't created by Al Gore. The internet was us all linking our PCs up together to communicate with one another. So to me, there's nothing more natural than the internet. And so, and especially when you look at the word internet and it has that netter in there, which is once again nature. To me, Mother Nature and the intelligent force within creation is recognizing that we need help, and that there are a lot of people that are hungry, that are thirsty, that are seeking, that are yearning for information, and this is one of the ways it's helping us. So, I mean, what do you? And once again, it's just knowledge. So you can use it to have conversations like this and try to help illuminate people, and things like that. Or you can sit around and watch porn all day, and that's your choice. And that's one of the things that the internet is also telling you about. You can choose. You can 0 or 1. You can go whichever way you want. I think that the it this whole everything that's happened within the technology in the last even 10, 20 years or whatever, I think is once again God, Mother Nature, or whatever helping us because we need help. And so I think the people that are utilizing it for harnessing it and using it for light and good is props to you.
And it's really just a crutch if you look at it. I mean, it's called high tech, but it's really, really shitty technology. I mean, I run a computer store, and I wouldn't have a business if people wouldn't be spending half their time fixing the goddamn thing, or sending it to somebody else. So it's really just a crutch for us to remember our own powers, things like telepathy, telekinesis, that with the help of numbers that we build ourselves virtually, not even something that we can grasp, materially. But yeah, that is, as I said, just a crutch, really, a really, really shitty system to remind us what we're really here for. And I think we're bombarding it the way that needs to be, so it can explode. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you a little bit there for sure because I don't think that so many people are like kind of getting on the bandwagon of transhumanism and that technology is going to be our savior and stuff like that. It's like this shit ain't gonna last, yo. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything is impermanence. Everything is impermanent. Everything gets gone. Things become extinct, and the
yeah,
internet is going to become extinct as well. It's just going to happen. I don't. I'm not a prophet, but I will say I'd bet my money, on that.
right.
So
And
you
in
know, and so
technology, it's so rapid, like you buy a new phone and the next month it's an old phone. It happens so quickly. Just look back when the internet was, open up, or the first computer. That's few, handful of years. And really, you can count it on your fingers. Uh, and I think we're making much more progress on the individual side with our thoughts and our mind, and that's growing much faster and more exponentially than the technology is. I think we're looking at the technology and we have to catch up. No, it's the other way around. The technology will never catch up to what we have in mind, so to speak.
yeah, I mean, I think with all the information on the internet, I think one of the things it's doing is providing legitimacy to all of these things that would had been sort of poo-pooed or dismissed, whether that's well, numerology and symbolism and gematria and astrotheology and all of these latent potentials that the human vessel has. You're talking about as you think telepathy and things like that. I don't talk too much about that stuff because I'm not telepathic as far as I know, or maybe I am and I just haven't understood it. But I can say that I can look at all of these things that modern science is completely dismissing and saying no, 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 no. We can prove that your opinion of these things is absolutely 110% incorrect. And so I think that's one of the things that the internet is doing is bringing legitimacy to a lot of these ancient arts.
Yeah. Like, the densest incarnation of our abilities which we have, like, as you mentioned, telepathy and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. We always hear these stories, and they seem maybe like steeped in myth, and a lot of times we just kind of dismiss them that Native Americans or Aboriginal people or whatever were highly connected to one another, and they may not had to have us speak to one another, and they could communicate with one another. I mean, is anybody really even trying that nowadays?
Hmm.
How can we just say that that's not true? I'm not also not going to say that it is true until I see it. But I will say this that I have had. In fact, I was just talking about this a few days ago. I have had psychedelic experiences where it was me and three other people, and we were silent, and we all were speaking. You know,
Hmm.
and there's no way to quantify that or verify it. It's not like we can grab some people scientists with some lab coats and go, hey, come check this out. We're being telepathic, but without question we knew what we were saying to one another.
Hmm.
And so to me that's just a little inclination that there's so much more that the human being has within him that he can express, and we just have a lot of that latent potential once again.
Yeah, and we can observe it when we sit together really, really closely and feel the energies of the people that are sitting around the fire, or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
But it also works, across large distances. The internet, so to speak. Like if you really chime in and the other person opens up, you can then start to feel and even see pictures of the other side of the tunnel, so to speak, if you want. But it starts with, like the within the length of the cable tow. That's what the Masons say. This is do what you can do there because that's where it's going to be received. But I think this internet thing is opening it up much farther, uh, uh, and it's just not really. It's a more subtle feeling there. It's subtle enough when you have to sit around a fire and feel these people. You really have to quiet down. You really have to like even forget the wind and your thoughts and just kind of chime in. But on the internet, there's so much going on. How do you break that apart? How do you take that apart? And I think that's what we're starting to remember. That the whole of the information makes a much more compressed, clear picture.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're getting right now. It's just a bigger and more clear picture of our future, our present, and our past. I mean, we live in the apocalypse. We do. This is the apocalypse right now, in one respect, because it's the unveiling, and so many things are being shown to us, and by so many of these different researchers. I mean, you can completely throw me out of the mix and just look at all of the wonderful information people that you've had on your show, people that I've had on my show that are showing in spades all of this information and revealing and unveiling all of this stuff for the benefit of humanity. And so to me, that's one of the things that the internet is bringing. But and, as you say and as I say, it's not, the internet isn't the end all be all. It's a great tool and it's helping us a lot, but at the end of the day, it's getting back to human potential. Potential means potent, I, all. That's what potential means. I am potent with the all. That's human potential.
Yeah, exactly. Very nice. The circumpunct, the little punct that we are in there, and realizing that there's a whole circle around it, and making the connection, all the connections.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Maybe just can talk about the sin and what that sin and that apple signifies in the Garden of Eden, because we also remember that apple you've sliced into pieces contains two parts, left and the right one as well. So again we have that similarity there. So what can you talk about sin and sin wave there, and the meaning that we can't reach that balance. We always are going up and always going down. So what that sin really means in allegorical and numerological ways here.
Well, eating the apple from, which is not even an apple in the Bible. It doesn't even say it's explicitly an apple, but it's always been symbolized as an apple, and so we eat that apple from, the fruit from the knowledge of good and evil, right? Well, and as you said, you cut that apple in half and you have the both sides. I mean, in one respect, that's pie, cutting that thing in half, So interestingly enough, there's 5 seeds within the apple as well. So you cut it in half and you have 5 on your left and 5 on your right. Well, that's representative of the human hands. Well, how did you even reach up to get the apple? The human hands. So it's talking about bringing, one respect, in creating materiality of the positive and negative, the good and the evil. Those both sides. So it's interesting too that they ate the knowledge, right? So what is 8, as you showed on that illustration that you had sent me? 8 is, of course, the number 8. And so what is 8? That's, once again, it's infinity. You just throw it on its side and it's infinity. So it's really bringing the the gods, the grand architect or whatever, bringing itself into materiality through the infinite nature of things. So when that's and look at the number 8 as well, right? It's one fluid. Just put your pen down and draw an 8, and you're going to go out, out, out. You're going to loop around, and then you're going to cross that point, and then you're going to come back in, right? And then you're going to come out. Then you're going to cross the point again, and it's in and out. It's in and out. It's those two halves of the 8, and it's one fluid movement, and that's infinity. So the same thing that we have, the good and evil, that sort of thing. And then you look at 8, the apple. You have and creating infinity. Well, where's infinity? Infinity is in the finite. So it's creating that finite point within the totality of the whole thing, and that's the man and the God, if you will. And one of the things about original sin, of course, this whole act was original sin, right? God said, "Don't eat the fruit." We did it anyway, as if, God, all-knowing, knew we were going to do it in the first place, right? So it's like, how can you even say that this was man's most egregious, quote-unquote, sin? Sin is sign. Just like Adam and Eve, Adam and even, right? These are mathematical parables. So you have the original sin. Well, origin is the origin point on a graph. It's the center point, if you will. And then you have origin all. So all is, of course, once again, the eternity, the totality, the expanse, the omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresence of God. It's the all. It's the Allah. So you have the origin of Allah, and it's the original sign. Well, this is a sine wave, right? It's SIN is actually even the mathematical abbreviation for sine. So SINE is given to as sine. So, and what is a sine wave? We all know what a sine wave does. It's how a frequency moves through space, right? And it goes up and down and good and evil and Adam and Eve and odd and even and positive and negative. So all of these things, the math, the story, the symbol, the story, the symbol, all of this stuff is ultimately talking about once again, you and your place in time. This whole story is brought to you by Genesis. Well, Genesis is just a a linguistic variation of the word genetics. And so obviously we're talking, and this is where we get the words generation, genes, of course, genetics, all have that prefix of gen. And so all of this stuff is ultimately, once again, just pointing to you. And I always kind of find it funny that, people look at the Holy Bible and they think it's this book of, when they, the literalist Christians, that sort of thing, look at this book as, this is the book to tell you about how you're supposed to worship God. What else do you think a 2,000-year-old book would be about except the sacredness and divinity of yourself? What is more holy than a book that's telling you about what you're even doing here? And then you open the book, and the first chapter is telling you about the genetics or genesis of a human being. So yeah, that's how I have come to understand it. That these are mathematical metaphors. That these are geometric metaphors to help you understand your place here, your role, and your purpose here.
Yeah, it's always about the point of view, point of view. So also about the apple. I like just how Scott Onstott talked about the apple, how you look at the apple and slice that apple in two ways, of two ways, point of view. You can slice that vertically and you will have like only two, those holes in apple. But if you will slice the apple, horizontally, you will get that, shape of the star in the apple. So which is very, very nicely shaped in the geometrical way. That's
Yeah,
really beautiful.
yeah. I mean, I actually got to see Scott on the tour. He came
Mhm.
down to Victoria, and I got to hang out with him a bit. Scott's just brilliant. He's such a genius guy. So,
Yeah.
genius. There's a great word, right?
Hmm.
It has gen in it.
Mhm.
So we're talking about generation, genetics, genes, genesis, and then we have the word genius. So what is a genius? Is that like an Albert Einstein who just happened by evolutionary biology to be born with a big brain? No. A genius is everyone. Because why? Because that's me, that's you, that's us, is built with genetics, which is what? It's the materialist creation of the intelligent force within creation. It's the ultimate expression of that. So everybody has the potential, the potent I all of being a genius. It doesn't have
Hmm.
anything to do with like what you were born with. It's et cetera, et cetera. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, GEN I also understand in a more removed way as in terra, in earth, in the matter. Uh, GE, words like geography, that's always pertaining to the earth. Um, the Egyptian god Geb, Geb, Jeb or Geb, is also very interesting. We have a German word, the past of birth is geboren, which has the GB, the goddess or god of the earth, and in gebor in, so
Hmm.
the gold into the earth. That's when you're birthed. It's really um, the thought into the GE whole circumstance, which is here where we are.
Yeah, and GEN, right? Well, the next letter is NO in the alphabet. So you just move one letter over and replace that N with the O, and you have Geo, and Geo means Earth. Where does genetics happen on Earth?
Right, right. GE, yeah, also the
GE. Yes.
General Electrics of things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Long lasting, yeah, and then you see these old companies, these old symbolic companies, they last a while because they choose uh, the symbolism of it. It's quite funny.
Yeah, and I always say I never really know. I don't really think anybody really knows. Like if a lot of these companies, obviously there's people, CEOs and things like that of a lot of these major corporations that understand this information. There's no doubt in my mind of that. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously that there are quote unquote elites that have kept this information, that know it, that use it for their own benefit. There's no question there. But there's also this element that a lot of this stuff just comes out naturally within us, because we're made of it. It's as
Right,
we were
right.
saying earlier, it's all around. So obviously there's some of this that's just,
There doesn't
naturally
always
comes
have
out.
to be an intent to change something with the information or with the symbolism that was chosen. I mean, you see it around,
Exactly.
people who open a coffee shop use the symbolism just naturally because that's what the vibration and the thoughts about this matter are.
Hmm.
But especially in advertising, this is not from my information, but for cars, for example, if you want to sell a car, you make it Marcy, you make it Aries. And you have so many signs if you look on the cars that are Aries or pertaining to the first month of the year, which, not January in that case would be March. For example, Mazda, and Nissan are two words of two different languages that mean the first month of the year. And Nissan has actually the circle and
And the line.
and the line through it where you see the ecliptic and how the sun comes over the ecliptic. And I think Mazda actually has the sign of Aries in a square or
Yes,
something
yes.
like that. Yeah. So it's it's everywhere, and for us to understand it and then use it with the right intent, I think that is the key to our creative collective freedom.
Absolutely. I mean, when you come to understand this stuff, you can't be manipulated by it anymore. Because
Right.
it's like once you understand it, you see it. Just like when, it's like if you didn't know how to read, right? Well, there's words all around you, and you wouldn't be able to understand your reality because you wouldn't be able to read the words. Well, there's symbols all around you, and you can't understand them unless you understand symbolism. Some of the car companies are just, I mean, it's so blatant. It's not even,
Yeah.
it's, like, I mean, Dodge Ram, right?
Exactly,
Dodge
the RAM.
equals
Yeah.
22 in English gematria. Dodge equals 22. Ram
Mm-hmm.
equals 7. 22 divided by 7 is pi. And that's, of course, what is the Ram? It's Aries. Pontiac. Pontiac has 7 letters and equals 22. 22 divided by 7 is pi. You know, I think Infinity uses the Tetractys. I mean, we could just go on and on. The Saturn car company. I mean, why Saturn?
Yeah.
It's like obviously the people that are creating these companies that have so much power and so much money at their disposal. Once again, I think without question know this stuff, and so that's why we need to de-occult it.
Yeah, and of course there's a Dodge 2200 if you want to buy it,
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah.
Just looked
Actually,
it up. I was like, yeah, there must be a 2200. Yes, of course there is.
of course there is, right? Yeah. One of the things I noticed that I actually noticed this on the tour. I never seen it before, but the Dodge Ram, one of them's it's called the Bighorn, and it shows a ram, and it's got big horn. So obviously talking about Aries, and what is Aries? As you mentioned, it's the equinox. So it's basically pi. It's Nissan. It's a circle and then a line going through it. It's talking about the equinox, talking about where the sun rises, right? And big in this cipher equals 14, and horn in the cipher equals 14. So you
Oh
have
boy.
14 and 14, which is the phalanges of your two hands. You know, it's like, oh, people that have not studied this stuff and have no idea about this stuff. She's like, oh, you're just force fitting stuff, and it's like bullshit. I mean, you could go to any of these car companies and just deconstruct them. In fact, I had started prepping a video for looking at a bunch of different corporate logos, but I kind of stopped it because I didn't want to just put it out and have people be like, oh, you look at the Illuminati controls
Right,
everything,
right, right. Yeah.
and I'm really fearful of that because it's like that's not the message that I want to promote. Control is CONTROL, and this is 3217522, and this equals 22, and there's 7 letters of control. 22
Hmm.
divided by 7 is pi. And I always say, well, who's really in control? The grand architect, the intelligent designer, It gives us the choice to live the life that we want, that we live. And right now, there are people that are choosing what we know, choosing what information we're getting, choosing how we're brought up, choosing our, the educational curriculum so that we remain dumbed down. And so, but we don't need to do that anymore. We can illuminate ourselves and come
Right.
to know all of this information.
Right. It's just really important to understand for everybody that, this symbolism is not evil. It's just been abused, misused for so long, and now we're gaining the power to understand that. And I just want to underline that because this is how we turn the ship around. They're putting the New World Order, for example. There is going to be a New World Order. Uh, if you want or not. It's are we doing it because the time is ripe, or are they putting a brand on it and everybody follows that like we have been? That really is the difference. And there's nothing bad about a third eye symbolism, or the one eye symbolism or whatever. And the New World Order, it's gonna come. They know it's gonna come. That's why they putting this branding on there, because they wanted to go a certain way, and that's not how that works.
Yeah, yeah, that's very well said. I got to speak with Alex Gray and at a couple of the dates, and one of the things that he's sort of adopted or embraced is this symbol of the eye in the pyramid. And I think it was Luke Radowski of We Are Change did this interview with him and like asked him about this stuff, and he talked about it. And the comments section under in the YouTube channel was just insane because there were so many people be like, Luke, why are you interviewing this guy? He's obviously Illuminati and stuff. Look, he's wearing the eye in the triangle. And then you just talk to Alex Grays about it. Well, he's like, I had just seen it my whole life and I had dreamt about it and I had thought about it and it constantly came up. And to me, it was a symbol of illumination,
Hmm.
And so here's once again the natural symbols coming through human beings and people adopting them and, for whatever purposes that they want. And so that's just a great point that you made there. So.
Yeah, yeah, like you said before, that one eye is really looking at you to tell you, you're the observer, and you have a take in this experiment here. It's really the mirror reminding that that
Mm-hmm.
that we are the ones. Yeah, it is a symbol of illumination, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, what's is it? I think it's a Navajo thing or something like said, but it's that we are the ones we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
are the
Yeah,
ones. The eyes that we've been waiting for. We've just been waiting to unlock once again that
right.
harness that light within ourselves.
And stop looking at somebody else to take the responsibility of our past and future. It was always us. Like Stephen Mailer said, he doesn't really believe in aliens, I guess. He said, that was us in a different state of mind, in a different state of consciousness, where we were able to just control all these thoughts and maths in a certain way that we were able to do other things. Our powers were
Mm-hmm.
enormously greater than before, and just we can't remember that, and we think it must be alien, somebody from outside, not from inside.
Hmm. Yeah, to kind of echo that, when UFO, right? Unidentified flying object. UFO
Yeah.
in English gematria, just to have some fun here, right? UFO is 662. This equals 14. Well, if you look at your hands, you have 14 phalanges on each hand, right? So 14 is obviously a number that's very important to the human being. Well, when we talk about aliens, really what we're talking about is alienation,
Mm-hmm.
and so our really what I think we are is alienated from our true selves, that we've been alienated from knowing who we are. So the true aliens are really ourselves, because we haven't remembered, we haven't recognized like how important that we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 28, both hands. What can you say about 28? We have 28 days later. That's an interesting number, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I always, I mean, I'll just say this because I just find this so fascinating. But basically the moon is clocked using the number 28. A traditional lunar calendar is 13 months of 28 days, and this
Oh,
gives you 364. I'm sure a lot of people know that. But I just find it so amazing just so magical that the fact that in order to map the moon, all you have to do is look down at your damn hands. If that doesn't tell you how interconnected we are with everything above and everything below, I don't know what will. It's just writ large right in front of you. You
Mm.
know, so to me, it's like when we talk about, are we aliens? Were we seeded here from another planet, or that sort of stuff? Yeah, I'm open-minded. Of course. So I'm obviously going to consider those things. But at the end of the day, when the math tells me that the moon is on your hands, and that the sun is within you, that's what I'm going to go for. Because it just makes sense in so many different ways. And interesting, you have 28. Look at, you have the number 2 and 8 creating 28. You have 2 thumbs and 8 fingers. So just look down, you have 2 thumbs and 8 fingers. Well, that gives you the number 28 right there. So it's telling you, and what that is numerology. That's numerology. No one's going to teach you that in any sort of, you're not going to go to MIT and learn that. You're not going to go to Harvard or Yale or Vassar to learn that. No one's going to teach you that
Well,
because, yeah, exactly. And so, that's numerology. And so, numerology is kind of poo-pooed. It's considered recreational math. It's considered pseudo-scientific or whatever. But yet your hands that tell you about the moon, for Christ's sake, are telling you that there's a legitimacy to numerology. So, I always say, okay, well, what am I going to go with? The mathematicians at MIT that tell me that, no, that's not legit? Or am I going to go with nature? Well, sorry, folks. Nature's going to win every single freaking time.
yay. Yeah, isn't there something with 28 weeks of the how we know how the woman is connected to the moon cycles, and
No, I mean, there's 270 days in gestation.
right, that's what it
So,
was.
yeah, yeah. Not necessarily, I mean, connected to 28, of course, because, it's a month is 28 days. I mean, at least in lunar. And of course, the moon and the month, and obviously there's a connection to the moon there. So, yeah, it's usually clocked at 39 weeks because basically what you have is trimesters, which are 90 days each, and there's 3 of those, so you basically have 270 days, and so there's 52 weeks of the year, so 3/4 of the year would be 39. And the number 39 actually becomes really important. Christian equals 39, Freemasonry equals 39. I think there are 39 books, 39 chapters in the Old Testament, I want to say. I got to look that up again. But the number 39 directly relates to human gestation. And so when you talk about a process of being reborn or rebirth of yourself, number 39 is connected to that. And one of the things I always do the tagline, do the math. Do the math. Well, in English gematria, that equals 39, and that's one of the cryptic things that I'm actually referencing there. So,
Just do the math. Yeah, and 39 then adds up to 12, which reduces to 3, uh, which again is, our Trinity, how it all started,
yeah,
the
yeah,
gestation period.
and how is a child created? A child is created through a man and woman to come together in sexual union, right? Well, man, M-A-N in this cipher is 111. This equals 3, and woman is W-O-M-A-N, and that's what is it? 42111. This equals 9. So you have man equaling 3 and woman equaling 9. Well, putting it together numerologically, you get the number 39. And that's
Mm.
exactly, once again, how many weeks it takes for you to
And
grow,
there's the and
for the
there's the
universe of you to grow within,
right, there's the
your mother's womb.
369 again, because of the 3 and 9 of sex. Hui.
Yeah, sex. Yeah, exactly. The
That
sex
brings
of the
us
6
that
between the
brings
3 and
us
9.
right. I wanted to ask you about the 369 and the work that Marco Rodin has done with his vortex math, which is all built on this triangle, if you want, and then a mirror triangle in the triangle and so forth, which builds this vortex. But I would like to hear your opinion on that.
I mean, I actually had Randy Powell. I think I've covered Marco's work in all three of the books. I mean, just at least briefly, just kind of shown it, you know. But I had Randy Powell, who was like Marco Rodin's understudy for a while anyway,
Mm.
on my podcast, and I'm a huge fan of that work because really what he's showing is that, well, as Randy Powell said on the show, he's like, what vortex-based math is, and make no mistake about it, is a theory. I mean, it's a theorem, excuse me. That means it's provable, it's verifiable, it's without question. You will get the exact results 100% of the time. Now, the fact that people are looking at this and saying that, oh, it's numerology, and so therefore we can dismiss it, as some mathematicians have, and I've even had experience with that. Well, basically, all you have to do is throw it back in the face, say, no, it's a theorem. It's not a theory. It's not, oh, this, you know, there are theories related to the applications of vortex-based math. That's for sure. I mean, there's people that have talked about free energy. There's you know, et cetera, creation of, you know, all of that stuff. And so those things are questionable because they haven't been substantiated yet. That, and as Randy Powell was saying on you know, on my show, he was like, well, the problem is that no one's throwing a dime at it. No money is being put into the investigation of this stuff. Why? Because the people that have the money either aren't going to let it happen or they're stuck in the universities, which are stuck in a paradigm that dismisses numerology. Well, it's time to shut that paradigm down because what we can do, and one of the things that's so brilliant about what Marco has brought forward, is showing that that's an opinion, and that opinion can be proven wrong. So that's what's so wonderful about vortex-based math. That was really one of the main, for a long time, I had investigated numerology and things like that, and I really couldn't understand why numerology was so important. And what Marco Rodin's work did is saying, well, this is why it's important. You know, we can show that theorems can be created with this, and so that was really one of the main. I can't say enough about his work because it really just opened the door for all this other stuff for me. So once again, when we started this conversation talking about, you know, my work or whatever, no, that's horseshit. You know, this is our work. This is all of us.
Yeah.
And so that's a perfect example of, I wouldn't even be here talking to you if it wasn't for Marco Rodin. So
Right,
that's
right.
important,
And there's a
you know.
lot of people going off on Marco Rodin stuff, you know, manufacturing their own interpretations of it that seem to work mathematically. There's just so much that you can do with that information. One thing I stumbled about and I didn't quite understand was, I'm sure you're familiar with Leeds and the Coral Castle and the Sweet 16, and somebody in some comment said, oh, because of, you know, because of the triangle of that Marco Rodin vortex math, I understand. I found the sweet 16 there, and do you have anything about that? That would interest me.
I'm not for when you sent me the show notes, I noticed that, and I was not familiar with this Sweet 16. I mean, I know Leeds Callan's work in the Coral Castle, and you know, supposedly that he had you know, the technology of the Egyptians and all of that stuff, but I didn't hear of the Sweet 16,
Mm.
so I
Well,
can't really say too much.
yeah, well, the story was that he kept saying when he was asked, you know, why he's doing that, what he's doing it for, he said, "Oh, I'm doing it for my sweet 16, and she's coming soon, and we'll be together again." Talking about a girl or woman, she has a name too. Um, but I think there was much more about the Sweet 16. We took that apart in another show, saying that 16, you know, adds up to 7, which is the letter G, and now we have gravity. So here's something that he was telling us, you know, about gravity and how he used it, but that doesn't explain how he did it. And I think, you know, with the key of Margot Rodin, maybe there is something where we can actually explain mathematically how this power, not only, you know, in a group where we can feel it immediately, but by yourself, binding these forces, binding this math, binding these symbols, binding the, you know, finding the right place to do it, and then you know, reawakening these powers in you. I think there's a little bit of a secret there.
So so Leeds Gallen was talking about this Sweet 16, this woman that he was meeting. Is that the story?
Yeah, whenever he was asked, why are you doing this? He said, I'm doing it for my girl. I'm doing it for my sweet 16. And there
Oh,
was
so
this name
Leeds
for this
Scanlon was a
woman.
pedophile?
I
Sorry,
don't know.
I
It
had
was
to
different
inject some humor
times.
there.
I have no idea if that was the age he met her at, or she was supposed to come, and I guess she never arrived, or she stayed where he came from and didn't come to the States, or something like that. But
Huh.
as I said, because this is such a story, it seems to me there's more to it than, a somewhat pedophile
Yeah, yeah.
lead
I'm
scoundrel.
just totally kidding. um, yeah, I guess we could talk. I mean, we could talk about 16 as you were saying, like one plus six equals seven. So and I'm obviously from what it sounds like, that's a pretty cryptic story. So maybe he was being extremely cryptic there. But we can
Right.
talk. At least we can talk about in English. The English cipher here was 16 and how it encodes pi. So 16, one and six, one plus six equals seven, right? When we break it down,
Hmm.
using decimal parity or reduce it down. So seven in the cipher, SEVEN, is 65551. It equals 22, and 22 divided by seven is pi. So when we reduce 16 down to seven, we see pi encoded within the word seven. Interesting. One plus six is seven, so that produces seven. One in this cipher, ONE, is eight, and then six in this cipher, SIX, is 14. So one gives you eight, six gives you 14. 8 plus 14 is 22. And 22 divided by 7 is pi. So the number 16 in and of itself encodes pi twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
So, that's one of the cryptic things about 16 that we can see. So, that's just in the language, right? So you wonder how much he knew about maybe electromagnetic forces or, that sort of thing. I mean, who knows? But obviously, that sounds like it's very cryptic to me.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Somehow moving the water so it moves the weight for you, because obviously there was a water bed uh, on the original site where he built it. It got moved after that. Like when you visit it today, it's not where it was built. And he looked very long for that certain place where, people think there was water there to help the actual physical building and lifting of these huge, huge stones.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some people ask a lot of times, like, okay, well, what is this information good for? Like, it's all great that you're making these connections, and we can talk about the number symbolism stuff, but what is it good for? And one of the things that I like to say is, well, number one, to me, it's complete. I mean, psychologically, it does wonders for you. I would say that. Because it allows you to understand symbolism, it allows you to understand deep philosophy and that sort of thing. But beyond just the psychological aspect of it, if numerology is if numerology is part and parcel to the mathematics of creation. Math and numerology are no different than one another. They're one and the same study. So if these sort of master guys like Ed Leeds Scallon and the Egyptians and whoever was moving these huge stones, if they were doing this using mathematics in any sort of sense, which of course they were, because obviously you're dealing with vibration, you're dealing with frequency, you're dealing
Hmm.
with electromagnetism, you're dealing with the properties of water, then understanding the entirety of mathematics in and of itself, meaning the mathematical and numerological aspects of it, is key. So, in my opinion, I don't think that we're going to rediscover these things that these ancient people understood until we get a full comprehension of the depth and power of mathematics, and which of course includes numerology. So that's one of the things that like I'm trying to teach. But I don't know anything about. I know nothing literally about electromagnetic current or magnetism, any of that stuff. So hopefully somebody out there is going to know that stuff and then start to look into this and then make that discovery. Because if we do, if somehow we can make that discovery again of how these people cut the stones and move the stones, well, that would change. That would change the world pretty damn quick,
Mm.
huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once we remember together, with your help and all these people that are working on these equations and whatnot, and to actually show how we can manifest, force through math. I think we're pretty close to snap that in half so we can digest the pill one at a time. But Yeah, I think that's really where we're at right now, and thanks to you and everybody who's involved in this, we're getting really really close now, and yeah, I
We
just
just got to
want
break on through to the other side. That's right.
exactly break out through to the other side. Yeah, here's the musician in you. Very nice. Thank you so much,
Thank
Marty
you.
Leeds.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys doing this again. It was great talking with you. It's been fun.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming.
right.
Yeah, like I said, when I get writing a new book, so when I get that done, I'll send you a copy or whatever, and maybe we can do this again.
Right.
Yeah,
Is it
sure.
your first book is sold out, is that right?
Yeah, Pie the Great Work is the first book that I wrote, and it was pretty much just sort of like a manuscript, just kind of throwing some ideas out there, and a lot of, there wasn't, I would say, it wasn't like a lot of continuity to the writing
Mm,
and things like that. But so that's out of print now. But mainly, what people need to know if they're asking, about why isn't it available anymore? Well, number one, the Great Work is available everywhere, you know.
right.
But I took the most important parts of that book and I put them in the other books. So the meat and potatoes of that book is within the other books as well. So don't
Mm,
think that you're missing out anything. So,
right,
but
right,
I
right.
don't think that I will be putting it. I don't think I'll be releasing it. Again, I might make a PDF of it or something and send it out if people want it. But
That would be
that's
great.
yeah.
But if
I think there's
somebody
only like
actually wanted a copy with your signature in it, you still have a handful, don't you?
I don't. I
Oh
don't
my
even
God.
know if I own it. I think I have one at my parents' house or something, but I don't even own the book. So I don't even own it.
Wow.
So if somebody has it and
Okay.
would like to send one to me, that'd be awesome.
Or at least put it on a PDF and put it online so we can read it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, but,
All right, great. Well, thanks again, Marty.
thank
Um,
you.
we'll
all
talk
right.
again. Yep.
All right.
All right. Bye bye.
Christina, Stefan, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
All right. Peace.